Hello and welcome to Condensing the Cloud podcast. I'm Max Schireson, operating partner at Battery Ventures. And today I'm excited to welcome Ali Ghodsi, CEO of our portfolio company, Databricks. So Ali has had an amazing journey from an academic researcher to running a company with billions of dollars in revenue and thousands of employees. I think there are just some amazing lessons he's learned along the way that'll be great to share with the community. So without further ado, let's get started. So I thought what we could talk about today is your journey from academic research to running a company with billions of dollars in revenue and thousands of employees. There are a lot of entrepreneurs out there in some subset of that journey. Maybe they weren't as far towards the academic research as you were, and their company hasn't gotten as big or won't get as big as yours has. But there's some version of at least a part of that journey that a lot of our audience is on. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about. So maybe I should start by asking, is there something in particular that strikes you that you know now that you go, oh, if only I had known this earlier, I would have done so much better, gotten here so much faster?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many things, so it's hard to pick. But I would say in the early days, I didn't have any experience outside of just the core things that we were innovating on. We were building Apache Spark at the time, which was a data processing engine. But how do you do marketing? How do you do sales? How do you do finance and so on? And I think if I had gone one advice, it would have been, maybe be more trusting of the people that are doing those things in those fields, and maybe how do you figure out how to find the best in those fields to come work for you? It's just much faster if you can find the right people and leverage them rather than having to reinvent the wheel from scratch every time. So I think that was the biggest challenge, right? We knew how to do engineering and how to build our products, but it's that whole other thing that's needed for building a B2B company that it just took a very long time to figure out what are the steps.
Well, and engineering is logical, it's deductive. Like the people who do engineering are smart in a similar way to how you're probably smart. But then sales, sometimes there's a lot more intuition and interpersonal stuff that comes into it. And so sometimes the great salespeople are great because of a totally different set of skills than what you're used to. So I imagine it was some adaptation to learn to value and appreciate those skills and understand the mix of them that it takes to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, especially the kind of salespeople you want to hire as an engineer are probably not the best salespeople. They're probably more like engineers than salespeople, and they're not the most effective necessarily in doing their job. So that's exactly, you kind of nailed it. It's how do you find the people that are really excel at their job in these other fields? They're not going to approach it the way you approach it or think about it the way you think about it. So you have to resist this urge of just kind of finding people that are, again, engineers just like you, but dressed up as marketing or sales or something else.
So what was your learning curve to figure that out? Like what approach did you take? Like you knew you had this problem that was totally different than the sorts of problems you had grown up solving, right? It wasn't an algorithm problem. It was like, how do I find people who are good at sales and find people who are good at marketing and find people that are good at finance? Did you decide to learn some of those fields yourself, or did you rely on your network? Like how did you even approach that problem?
Yeah, I think that people do that, right? People that are sort of have the kind of background I have, they will do that. They will read the books, they will learn all the stuff about that field, kind of go bottoms up and build up that kind of how hard is this? I'm going to learn everything about it. That's good. But I think another thing that was kind of useful that maybe I didn't get advice to do is just spend a lot of the time in those fields and find the best in the market. Like what companies are the most amazing sales companies? They don't necessarily have good products, but they're just, when it came to sales of B2B products, they were the best. Like PTC came out as one of those. Like, okay, in the last 20 years, they were game changing in B2B sales, right? They invented a lot of the methodologies and techniques. Okay, who are the top people that went through PTC? Where are they now? Okay, find that clique of people that kind of reinvented the game in sales, meet them, pick their brains, make them advisors, kind of learn the trade as well. Don't just go read the books and become book smart in sales. How do you also figure out who are the sort of the best in that field and learn from them, and repeat the same thing in marketing, repeat the same thing in finance, repeat the same thing in customer success. Frankly, also repeat the same thing in engineering, because while we knew how to engineer systems with a few researchers in a research lab at UC Berkeley, building an engineering factory with product management, with design, with technical program management, and all those kind of things. That itself is art that we didn't know. So you had to repeat it and do it again in all of them. Quite quickly, a pattern emerges that these are the companies that really did it differently. And they were really special. And the people that went through that company, they were special in engineering or in marketing. Connect with them, learn from them.
So you had a set of skills that you were really good at, and probably at some point in the company, you were doing the things that came naturally to you, and the company gained because they had this guy Ollie who was really good at this stuff, and then over time, there's this inevitable, at least to some extent, shift where you wind up doing the things that like are expected of a CEO to do. And your comparative advantage in doing them doesn't really stem as much from who you are as just the job that you have. How much have you allowed that to happen? How much do you resist that? And how different is your job today as a result?
Yeah, I mean, my job is very different today than it was in the beginning, but I would just say maybe the thing that I always had was that I was always interested in whatever is needed for Databricks to be successful. So what does Databricks need right now? What is the biggest bottleneck for us to get to the next level? And I was genuinely interested in that. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm interested in these things and the company need those other things. I was always interested in what is the main thing we need right now. If it's marketing, if it's finance, if it's whatever it is right now, I want to unblock that. I want to do everything in my power to do that. So I would try to
Engineering the system of the company to work as well as it can.
Yeah, so at any given time, I always saw my job as a CEO of trying to figure out what's the biggest barrier to success right now. What's the thing that if I could crack the code on that one thing, we get a 10x out of it. And then I would focus all my attention and energy on that and try to make the company kind of succeed in unblocking that, either because I helped doing it or I found other people or built the teams or we figured out together how to do it. But try to always focus it on the key bottleneck. I call it strategy, but it's really like figuring out what's that key bottleneck that's needed. And that has shifted over the years. I would say, initially there was the product market fit sort of stage of the company. I was running engineering and product at the time. So really we were sort of laser focused on, can we build something that people want to repeatedly use? And that itself went like through 3 different journeys, right? It was like, can we get something that people just want to use at all or try out? And that's hard enough. A lot of people, they'll tell you they want to use it, but when you give it to them, they're not that interested. But then, so that once you crack the code on that, it was, okay, they're using it, but then they stop using it after 1 day. So they love it for like 1 day or for 2-3 days. But this is not like a viral thing that they just keep using and they can't let go of it and they're using it 24/7. So then you have to go spend a lot of time talking to them. Why are you not 24/7 using this? Why is this not interesting? And you have to like change the product market fit so that you can get to a stage where they're using it all the time. We thought at that point we were ready and we were done. So we thought now we just need to charge for it. And it turned out, okay, there's a third phase, which also is hard, which is to go ask people, hey, can you pay for this? And then you'll find out that many of those people that were using it all the time, they'll say, well, I'm not going to pay for this. If it's free, I'll use it. But if you're going to ask me to pay for it, then I have alternatives. Like I could use other things that are like good enough, close enough, and they're free. So then you have to figure out how do you actually start, getting people to pay for it that can use it. And, product market fit changes again. The market, you might want to target enterprises or other people who are willing to pay for it. You might have to add capabilities that are needed so that, no, you can't go just use the free version because you need these other things. So that was just chapter 1 in product market fit that we had to go through. Chapter 2 was kind of like, just starting to scale it. And then chapter 3 that we're in now is like optimization. But, a lot of the energy went on that just first chapter. And, just as a head of product and engineering, that was my main concern.
Makes sense. One of the things that I'm seeing nowadays is product market fit. It used to be something 10 years ago, you'd talk about product market fit as something that you find and then you have it and you kind of keep it from there. But nowadays the market is so dynamic that product market fit it feels like it's continually evolving as the market shifts. There's so many investors putting so much money into so many startups that there's always a changing market, and companies like Databricks continuing to innovate, your competitors continuing to innovate. So how do you now make sure that you're maintaining product market fit and even advancing product market fit to outdistance your competitors, and what's different there versus kind of that initial finding product market fit?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of people think of it as binary, like you either have product market fit or you don't. but that's kind of incorrect. Which product and which market or what market. You start with kind of a product, and at some point people are interested in it, but once you're successful and people are interested in it, actually you start adding a lot of capabilities to your product, and soon you start squinting and looking. You're like, well, actually, it's not really one product. It's kind of multiple product, but we haven't actually made the journey in our company yet to be a multi-product company. So that's another journey we went through later in the company's sort of lifetime. But so I think a lot of companies that succeed in getting sort of the revenue starts going up, they actually end up being kind of multi-product in some sense. So that's like one side of product market fit equation. The other side of the product market fit equation is the market. Which market? You're selling to United States initially, or you're selling to Europe? Are you selling to SMBs? Is it self-serve? Are you selling to the enterprises high end? Are you selling to the federal government? Are you selling to Asia? Have you cracked the code on Japan? So turns out, and each of those are different. So actually product market fit is different in each of these. Like product market fit is different in Japan because they buy it in a different fashion. They buy a lot through partners, for instance. So to crack the code, to get that fit, you need a different distribution channel. So it's actually quite nuanced, and it's not as simple as just it's binary. So you have to be at it all the time. And as you said, there are these companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google that have whole portfolio suites of products, right? So they'll keep evolving those. And one of the things that quite early happens when you have product market fit, when you get that first initial on one of the products, fit it in one market where it's, I would say when you start approaching like 100 million ARR, there's a scary thing that happens that I always tell people, congratulations, don't be scared. It should be a badge of honor, which is you wake up and you see an announcement from one of these hyperscalers, and it just looks exactly like your product. It looks like they literally copied. Okay, it has the same messaging. It's something, and it's a very scary thing, right? And everybody will start talking about like, oh my God, this is like the Databricks killer or whatever your company's called. This is the X killer, and you're done here. These guys have huge distribution channel, and they're built exactly. And if you look at the web pages, oh my God, they even use the same messaging. It looks the same, but that's inevitable. Like, congratulations. You've proven out that your product market fit is, sustainable. The big guys or gals have noticed. They're coming after you. But actually, you don't need to be that worried. It's very rare that they'll be able to completely eliminate you because they don't really grok what you have. They're kind of copying what's on the web page. They're not really dedicating their whole company to it. They're putting together a little team of 5 people. It's like the B team kind of.
Yeah, the Oracle NoSQL database definitely didn't do in MongoDB in any way, shape, or form. But
it's a very scary thing because you finally made it. And you get to your like 100 million. It's like, now we finally kind of made it, okay? And the company is going to succeed. And then you wake up one day, it's a normal day, and then splash, like, oh my God, this is happening. And then everybody's like, okay, it's game over. You're dead. So you go through that. That's like kind of the initial phases of product market fit. But then you learn, okay, distribution matters, especially when they start doing that, the big guys. You start learning that, okay, I need to get distribution. And that's when the scale game starts. I would say that's sort of chapter 2 of the job, and that changes your job completely. My job changed completely from going like, hey, product market fit, get people to love this. Okay, let's get them to charge for it. Okay, now we have an awesome product. I love the product. I'm going to make it so lovable. And now it's like, okay, how do we scale this thing?
So when you're in that next chapter of how do we scale this thing, there's so many different directions in which you can go to scale. Right. You can scale geographically to selling the same thing that you sold in the US, in Europe, or in Asia. Or by the way, often for a lot of companies, it's selling the same thing you sold in Silicon Valley in New York to selling all over the US, and then in Europe and in Asia. You can go from selling it in just a few industries to selling it in more industries, or you can add products to sell. Or you can add, higher end versions and entry level versions and go from selling to medium companies to bigger companies, to bigger companies to smaller companies. Right? There's so many different directions to go. Talk a little bit about the directions that you chose to go, how you sequenced those different dimensions of expansion, and why you made those choices.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it also applies to product, right? So later we become a multi-product company. What other products should you build? which products should you not build. But just on the go-to-market and on the scaling side, when you start scaling the company, the same principle applies to both the multi-product and also scaling the business geographically and so on. At all times, you want to scale it in ways that reduces the amount of friction. Okay, so if you already figured out how to sell it to the big banks in the United States, which region has similar regulations for their big banks, so that we don't change too many variables, so that we can more easily go there and hopefully be successful. For instance, if you go into Asia, oftentimes it's ANZ, Australia and New Zealand. If you're selling to enterprises here in the United States, Australia and New Zealand in Asia is pretty good for that too. It's the most similar. Buying patterns are similar. The language is similar. So as much as possible, try to go like that. As much as possible, don't make radical, crazy changes. New region requires absolute localization. Like you go to Japan, for instance, you need complete localization. The product has to all be in Japanese. You have your documentation in Japanese, and they buy it in a different way, and the regulation is different. So make as few changes as possible. And it might seem obvious in hindsight, but actually that's not the advice people give you. The advice people give you is like, well, let's look at TAMs. Okay, you're in this TAM. Okay, well, then the second biggest TAM is over there. So that's the one we should go after. That's the biggest one. That's the most obvious one. That's where everybody else. And then when you tell them, well, do I really want to go there? Well, they'll say, well, I mean, let's look at gigantic corporation over there. They have 40% or 30% of their revenue there. So it's a no-brainer. We should go there. Just remove obstacles and challenges as much as possible and friction so that you can be successful with each of these. That buys you funding and time to pick the next one and to pick the next one. So pick adjacencies where you already have some unfair advantage. You already know how to sell it. You already know how to do it. So pick an adjacency where you have unfair advantages is what I would say. And make it increase the probability of success as much as you can. That's my advice.
And then in terms of product line expansion, it's some of the same principles, but there are some differences also because you have this ecosystem of partners around you that are building products that on one hand are complementary, but on the other hand are both competing for share of wallet in implementations, and to some extent also creating more complexity for a customer to have to integrate multiple solutions to solve their problem. So how do you think about the sequencing and the choices between partnering and building it yourself? Are there some clear principles that you can follow there? Does it have to all be pretty much case by case? How do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, look, all of these things, it's very hard to come up with just one golden rule and it just works. But I would say, first of all, I've seen companies that start doing multiple products way too early. So at least get product market fit and get the first thing really scaling and make sure that that really works before you get too eager. And now we have 5 products. I'm trying to get product market fit on these 5 right now. And, some are going better. Don't do that. Like, go with one. It's hard enough. And actually, there are many very successful companies out there that IPO'd and went very far, really, really on one product. Maybe it looked like more inside when you looked at it, but I would say like Tableau was like a one product. Splunk was kind of originally one product, and they had a SIM second, and so on and so forth. So you can get very, very far and build very great companies. MongoDB was another one like that. So you don't have to go build 5 products immediately. So that's like number one. Number two, you need to really understand, so you have your core business that now has product market fit, and you decided to expand. You are successful with your first product because you have buyers, you have a channel, you have partner, you have ecosystem, everything kind of is working. So as you add adjacent product, make sure you're not alienating big portions of your core business. Okay, so this is really, really important. And you see this with the big companies where they alienated a whole swath of the market, which says, oh, I'm not going to be on that cloud because that cloud competes with us. You see this all the time. You don't want to do that. So be careful where you pick. And don't fall for the kind of, hey, we can build that too. I have really smart engineers. I'm going to go build that as well. Don't do that. Apply the same principles. Find an adjacency. So it needs to be adjacent to what you're doing. And so close to what you already are doing. And then it needs to provide, there has to be some unfair advantage for you to do it. Like you already have the data, or maybe they're already using your product. Typically, it looks like this. They're already using product X that you built with your product market fit X. And then after X, they usually do Y. But they have to go do Y over there, and it's complicated. If they could just do Y here, right there on X, then they're done. There's also the reverse, which is they come from Z, and they come to X, our product. but there's a lot of friction coming from Z to us. What if we also did Z? So that's that's what I would say is think of it adjacency, and then you have to have some unfair advantage if you're going to do it. If you're just competing from scratch, you probably can't do it as well of the startups, because again, those startups, just like I said, when the big companies announce the product to kill you, you can't do what those startups are. They breathe. Their whole life is this. They've started, they probably started 5-10 years ago, their journey on this, and they're just doing that. You can't do it as well as them, unless there is a really good reason structurally in the market for you to do that. I think one thing to really pay attention to is who's the persona and who's the buyer. Shifts in persona that uses your product and shift in buyer is super hard. And might seem obvious, but I see a lot of companies making this mistake. They'll buy something that has a different buyer. Okay, so your whole sales team now doesn't know how to sell to them, because your sales team is used to selling to CMOs or to CIOs or to VP of engineering, whatever your product is. So you really want to figure out, is it the same buyer? And then is it the same persona, or is it a similar persona that's using your product? It's very hard to shift personas, to go to a different persona that didn't used to use your product. Your intuitions will be all off. Like the thing that you think is simple, maybe that new persona considers too complicated or not advanced enough. They need way more knobs, and you have no intuition. You don't actually understand that person because it's not your typical persona you sell to. So I think one should be very, very careful. And usually people fail when they add a second product or, they expand.
So another dimension that's important is you're thinking about products that you're building is this product doing the same thing as another product, but doing it better or cheaper? Or is it really enabling people to do something different? And I think one of the things that was interesting to me from the beginning about Databricks is it was really something that was good for solving some of these new problems that people had around data science and AI, rather than like a cheaper way to build a data warehouse in the cloud. And ultimately, these things start to blend together a little bit at market maturity. But I'd love to get your thoughts on just the difference between enabling new use cases versus making existing use cases more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, I think you kind of, and this is like loosely speaking, I think loosely speaking, you kind of need your product to be 10x better than whatever people are doing. Okay, so this kind of like, hey, we can do this 30% better than the folks over there. It's not going to work. It's not enough motivation for people to change, revamp the way they do things. It has political repercussions for them because someone bought that way of doing it. Now you're telling them they were wrong and they got to do it your way. For 30%, it's not worth it. So you kind of have to be at least 10x better, right? So we're 10x better, faster, cheaper, or we're enabling a complete new use case that you couldn't do. I think of that as 10x as well, kind of. So if you have that, that's much better to go for than trying to just slightly improve things and slightly, at the margins. And you see this all the time with startups. Like, hey, we're doing what those guys over there are doing, but we have like feature shock, these 20 things. And each of them is like 10, 20% better. And if you add them all up, it's so amazing. We have all this stuff. But okay, but I didn't really understand what you just said. It seems like it's the same thing as those guys are doing. Oh, that's not fair. We have so many other things. No, you want to really be kind of, no, this is a different way of doing things completely. Ideally, it's a disruption. It's a secular trend that disrupts the whole approach out there. So you need to pay attention. If you don't do things the way I'm saying to you, that could be the end of your company, or you're setting the wrong direction for your company, or it's bad for your career. I mean, this is where things are headed. Things are not going to be done that way anymore. They're going to be done in this new way. So you want your strategy to kind of reflect that. And I think ideally you do that. That's how you get product market fit, even for the first product, but also for the second and third, rather than just doing the 10% better thing.
So we talked about 10% better and 30% better. From a product perspective, that's not exciting. But in the third phase of the company journey around efficiency, it becomes all about that 10% better or 30% better, or maybe it's a bunch of different 2% betters. Talk a little bit about that phase of your journey and also about how that maybe affects people culturally, right? Like when you've been in an environment that's just all about growth and doing more and doing it faster and winning and getting there, and then suddenly what it costs begins to matter.
Yeah, exactly. So look, I would say look, so once you have your product market fit, you're so excited, things are starting to work. And, you overcame that announcement that's, really scares you. And now suddenly everybody's like, oh, your company's doing well. So they want to give you a lot of money. And it turns out that you can actually scale the company quite quite easily by copy pasting, like get more coverage of salespeople, get more coverage in more regions. So, and then there's a lot of momentum, and everybody's like, hey, you get a lot of support from people that now, because they see that it's working. So everybody want to have a piece of it. So they're giving you all these, instruments that lets you scale it. So now you're starting to scale this machine, and that works for a while. But as you start getting to, thousands of employees and above, a lot of inefficiencies introduce themselves, in how you're organized. And eventually that inefficiency is going to kill you. And these inefficiencies are things that are silly when you're 100 people. You kind of don't care about it. I'll pick a really silly example that doesn't even matter, but it actually does matter. You have HR, and you'll have a person in HR that answers questions about, okay, well, I want to go on maternity leave or paternity leave, or, I'm sick, how much do you pay me? You can answer that question. It's very specific for each employee and where they are in their sort of what kind of insurance and where they are in the world and so on. So you have people that are just answering that question. Soon you realize that at, thousands of people scale, if you don't do something about it, you'll literally have like 100 people whose job it is just to do that, just to answer these questions. And it's very clearly, and what are they doing? They're answering the same question. They're going, looking it up, figuring it out. Because, you're so many countries and you're so many regions. That's just a very sort of silly example of, that itself, that cost is enormous. And that's just like, that's a very specific example. There's lots of examples of this in engineering, in sales, in, the technical sales teams, if you have those, in marketing. So everywhere this starts eating up on you. So now you start to really focusing on how do we drive efficiency? Same thing is also true like in sales. Like you have 10 salespeople. I know which of my 10 salespeople are doing well or not. Okay, you grow it to 20, I kind of still know. I don't know all of them as well, but I kind of know my 20 salespeople. And then we have managers and so on. But we have 1,000 salespeople. It's a statistical game. And you have to really start looking at, okay, what's the distribution of attainment? Exactly, what percentage didn't even make 20% of quota? And what does that mean? What's the payout versus how much quota they made? And you have to start looking at all these different statistics. And there's 1,000 ways to slice and dice this. How much is it on bookings? How much is it on annual bookings? How much is it on actual consumption? How much is it on, logos, the whole funnel? So it just becomes, you have to optimize the whole system for the machine to be able to really make progress. It's not so much, hey, we need to produce EBITDA and we need to get more efficient. It's not just that. It's just like the frustration of working in a big company where things are inefficient really will start, affecting the employees. Like us, you have to have thousands of meetings and you have to coordinate with 1 million people and nothing. So driving efficiency starts becoming really, really important. And turns out the people that are really good at scaling, they are kind of relentless. They're like, let's go, 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 go. I can make stuff happen. Don't worry about it. I'll break some glass. I move fast, but I make stuff happen here. Those people, we have to kind of figure out what's the ROI on this. How are we going to set it up? And this thing you're rolling out, yeah, I know you can go very fast and do this, but what's the sustainable way of doing that in a cost-efficient way? So you need to start getting those people that can actually do that. And that's like kind of when you start building out ops teams in every department, and the ops teams just focus on how do we optimize and drive more efficiency. You start expanding forecasting functions in finance, and then they need to interact with each of the departments and keep them accountable and hold their feet to the fire and make sure that the company is growing efficiently. So it does become much harder because stage 1 was just product market fit. Stage 2 is now, okay, expand at all costs, but keep also doing the product market fit at the same time. Then stage 3 is expand all the time really aggressively, but do it super efficiently. So keep cutting costs and expanding and keep doing the innovation at the same time. And make sure you're also building up all of the back office of the system so that it can support all these other functions, but do that really cost efficiently too, because otherwise that can also get out of hand. That's kind of like that's been kind of my journey, at least at Databricks.
And in your journey, a lot of the hypergrowth came at a time where capital was relatively available, right? But now when capital is a little tighter, companies are needing to sometimes blend in more of the efficiency much earlier in the cycle. If you look back, do you think it would have helped you maybe or hurt you a lot if you had to blend in efficiency earlier? You could almost see it either way. What do you think?
I really firmly think that for Databricks' case, for us, it would have hurt us if we grew up in this era. I think a lot of it depends on the company and the CEO. Like I was paranoid from day one. So I was never like, oh, let's just burn all this money and let's, who cares? This is going to be trillions of dollars and none of this matters. And, there are new rules and we're writing the rules again. I wasn't like that. I was really keeping tabs on how much time, how much runway do we have, how far do we need to get, how big are these shoes that we're buying, how fast are we going to grow into these shoes. So I was doing those kind of calculations all the time, every year. And so we were paranoid, we were careful. But having said that, it gave us the ability to grow extremely fast. The whole strategy was, let's be very calculated and take calculated risks, but let's fly close to the sun. And let's fly so fast that we can just fly by and it doesn't go by. And if the strategy works, we'll be big enough that at that point, it's hard to kind of kill us. There's just so many small startups that were all doing the kind of stuff we did. We all sounded the same. It was all data, blah, 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 analytics, something for something, easier, better, faster. So how do you kind of like really separate yourself from the masses? So strategy was raise a lot of money, execute fast, but thoughtfully, make sure that the company doesn't go under while you're doing that. So I think we would not have been the size we are today for sure. I actually don't think even we would have been as successful, but I certainly don't think we would have been at the size that we are today if funding would have been very limited and there would have been this push for like efficiency from day one. So that's my view firmly about Databricks. I'm not saying this applies to every company. Sure. I think it could be very different for different markets, different CEOs. And certainly I see a lot of companies these days, especially in the AI field, and the way they're making investments, where I'm looking at, I'm saying that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it doesn't make sense to me if you don't have any income to go buy a gazillion GPUs, 10,000 GPUs, 20,000 GPUs, 8,000 GPUs, and then build something and say later we'll figure out how that's going to pan out. I would not do that. So that's like way above my risk, tolerance level. I would never do that. And I'm skeptical that it actually can work.
So a couple things have come across as you talk about this journey. You've been paranoid with like a mix of aggressive and careful as you've executed, but you've also been very adaptable as the situation that you're in and what you need to do has changed. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your earlier life before you were a computer science researcher, and if you think it contributed in any way to your adaptability or paranoia.
Well, it's hard to say, right? It's hard to run the A/B experiment and know how things were. But I grew up as a refugee. We fled from Iran. We had to change schools a lot. We had to move around quite a bit. The environment changed quite a bit on me as a kid growing up. Whereas to the point that I kind of felt like, hey, change is part of life, and you might have very, very quick changes, like just things turn upside down immediately, like and that's okay. You just have to live with it. So I kind of don't think of anything almost as permanent, and just roll with it. It is what it is. Like, every day is going to be a new set of news, and whatever that is, adapt to it. I think it helped me. I also think that the changing of environments helped me interact with different types of people, which I think is useful. Again, back to the comment we made, if you're an engineer, you really love working with engineers. If you're a marketer, you want to work with a marketer, being able to interface to many different groups. It helped me having kind of a diverse background, in the sense that I saw many different schools, many types of kids with very different cultural backgrounds. I don't mean like, oh, they speak different languages. I mean, like, in this school, all that matters is which kids are the strongest and who's beating up who. In that school, all that matters is who does best on math, and so on. And that kind of expose you to the world is kind of very different, and the different departments and different people, where they come from, they're all kind of different. How can you actually work with each of them? So I think that has helped me. And every day when I do the job, I'm just, again, back to that, I focus on what's the main bottleneck for Databricks? How do I make Databricks successful right now? That's the job I want to do. That's the thing I want to focus on, cracking the code. Maybe I'm already, always been good at that particular thing, or maybe I'm terrible at it, but I'm going to now focus on just figuring that out, because I want to unblock that. I want to try to be the best at that. And if I can, I'm going to hire the best person who can help me crack the code on that, and then we'll focus on that. Once we crack the code on that, we'll move on to the next one and just keep repeating this. That's how kind of have been managing Databricks since the beginning.
So in terms of making Databricks better, we're talking about efficiency. One thing you mentioned is the HR person answering all the same questions again and again. There'd be like a useful piece of software to make that easy. Are there 2 or 3 things that you just wish you could buy a piece of software that would do? Like, how come this thing doesn't exist, and the software for this is so crappy? Like, outside your core product, things that you would want as a user.
Okay, so things that people should go build right now. First of all, I think that in every scaled company, like large companies are all doing this optimization game. They're all on chapter 3 or maybe 4 or 5 that I don't know about yet, but they're kind of, they have big ops teams. These are people that pull things out in Excel and they do analytics and then figure out, and they have, each department has lots of these people, right? They're called analysts, but it could be marketing analyst or, finance analyst and so on. They pull the data out of these systems, they do some Excel math on it, and then they produce some dashboards. And then those go to meetings for execs, and then they make decisions about how to do investments in their companies. This, I think, certainly has to get automated, right? This kind of like manually pull data out of all the systems of records, put them in Excel, do some manual basic math on it, and then dashboard it, and then produce PowerPoints, and then back. It's kind of like the backbone of how all large corporations are run today. This has got to be able to be, you have to be able to automate that. And I think there's also a huge lack of AI in the analytics that those people then do. Like, okay, they pull it out, they put it in Excel, but largely they're just looking at histograms and trend lines and like, well, it looks like it's going that way, but you got to be able to leverage AI for this stuff. So I think that portion, there's huge opportunity for that to happen. I think all these system of record software companies that are out there, I'm not singling out any particular ones, but like, we have Workday does your HR, Salesforce does your CRM, NetSuite does your finance, all of them. I am not singling out any particular one. All of these, once AI is really infused into them, and that's not what we do, by the way. Like, we're not in the HR, we're not in the AI HR field. But once AI is infused to those, you should be able to do a lot of these things automatically. Who should get promoted? What should be the increase in salary? What, in sales, what are the accounts that are going to grow? How much should the quota be? What are the territories for them? How much should people get paid? Which accounts should you go after? Who's going to churn? All that kind of stuff, right? In finance, what is your revenue going to be? How are you going to forecast that? What is the confidence intervals on it? All these kind of things are actually today done manually in large organizations with people with Excel. So I think there's huge opportunity here. Basically, take any system of record and an AI-infused version of it in the future, I think is a great opportunity. Same thing for SIMs. They take massive data and they process it and they sort of alert you on security. AI is going to be infused into those. It's not quite happened yet. Customer 360 CDP. Every organization wants to understand their customers. There is no really automated AI-based sort of super futuristic. I think there's room to innovate on all of these. So pretty much the whole SaaS stack. And I haven't even gone to apps like lawyers and doctors and teachers. I'm not even looking at those. I'm just saying all the system of record software SaaS companies would pretty much have to be reinvented in this new AI era. So I think there's going to be this great opportunity. It's just, I think the problem is everybody expected that to happen in 2023, and then expected
longer than a year though.
Yeah, it didn't quite happen in 2023. So now I'm worried that, I think in 2024, there's going to be like the trough of disillusionment, or maybe even 25, of like, okay, none of this worked. None of that was true. So, this is overhyped. But then surely enough, all of these things that I said are going to happen. They just take a little bit longer than a year, as you said.
How do you know, like, which advice to take, which advice not to take, like, who to surround yourself with advisory wise, right? Like it can be kind of overwhelming sometimes, I imagine. So any advice there?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you should seek out people who have done it before, people that you click with and that you trust, and you should constantly be, I know people give you, they tell things like, oh, advisors don't work, or you give them a bunch of equity, but then they end up not actually, you never meet them and so on. But that's on you. I've actually kind of benefited a lot from talking to folks all the time, like yourself, Max. I mean, have regular meetings, pick their brains, ask them what they think, talk to people who have experience, who've done it before. I think the more you do that, the more data points you're getting. These are things you won't find out in the books. So I do think it's really, really important. Having said that, I don't think you should necessarily listen to them. Right? So I think it's really, really important to pick their brains, and that kind of triggers the conversation in your head, and you can start thinking about it, and you can ask other people. But I've also found that it's very rare that you just copy paste. Okay, this person said you always go left, and you just go left, and that's it. And that was the way. I didn't even understand why I went left, but that was the path. It doesn't go that way. So you have to find your own path. But I think it's awesome if you can surround yourself with people that can give you advice on what they saw, and they can connect with other people in their network and can learn from their mistakes. I do think it's invaluable. So I would definitely recommend doing that.
Well, it's been really great to talk to you. I think any entrepreneur, when they start a company, their dream is to have some journey that's something like the journey that you've been on. So it's great to hear what that's actually been like to traverse. And hopefully lots of people will be able to learn from that and save a few wrong turns along the way. Thanks so much for sharing your journey. It's been a pleasure to be able to watch it as you've gone through it, and it's great to be able to share it with the rest of the entrepreneurial community.
Thanks so much, Max, and thanks for all the advice throughout the years. We've been blessed. We've got a lot of help, and we got really lucky. I hope other people can repeat this. So thanks so much.